Star Citizen just turned one of the universe's most desolate, stripped bare planets into a lush paradise that looks better than Earth itself, and the community is absolutely losing their minds over it. But nobody's talking about the data mining evidence that suggests Nyx isn't just a distant concept anymore. We're talking about voice lines for People's Alliance missions, Levski ATC communications, and jump point data that's already sitting in the game files right now. You're looking at a planet that was supposed to be so worthless that desperate refugees chose to live in a crumbling asteroid mining station instead. Now it's got rolling green hills and pristine lakes. The real question isn't whether this breaks the lore, it's whether you're ready for what's actually coming in the next few months. Look, you've probably been following Star Citizen's development long enough to know that when CIG shows something at CitizenCon, there's usually months or years between the reveal and actually playing it. But Nyx is different. You've got TSG dynamic event missions already in the files, with 6 complete phases involving the People's Alliance, intersect defense solutions, and this is where it gets wild. Voice lines specifically mentioning making Nyx a safer place for everyone. You remember reading about Nyx back in the early days? This forgotten system where desperate people carved out a life in the ruins of a failed mining operation because there was literally nowhere else to go. That was the whole point. That was the tragedy and beauty of Levski. The environmental storytelling was perfect. Of course, these freedom fighters would choose to live in an abandoned asteroid mine rather than bow to corporate overlords. But now you're looking at footage of Nyx One that makes you wonder why anyone would choose to live in a rusty space station when there's basically Eden floating right next to them. And the evidence suggests you might be experiencing this contradiction firsthand very soon. So, what's actually happening? Cloud Imperium Games has completely reimagined Nyx One from a coreless, heat-swept world, picked clean of valuable minerals into what appears to be a multi-biome paradise world. We're talking grasslands, wetlands, forests, the works. This isn't just a visual upgrade. This is a fundamental change to the established lore that's been in place for over a decade. But the data mining tells a different story about timing. You've got mission files pointing to specific locations: Levski Cafe Musician, Borho Station, Delamar Recite. These aren't placeholder names, these are fully implemented mission locations with voice acting and multi-phase objectives. The People's Alliance isn't just lore anymore, they're an active faction with Captain Anis Martel of the security vessel, Tranquility leading operations against Vandal raiders and Shatterblade pirates. Think of it like this. Imagine if someone took Mad Max's Wasteland and turned it into the Shire from Lord of the Rings, but then told you the Shire was opening for visitors next month. Most players are missing the bigger picture. This isn't just about one planet or even one lore change. This is about how CIG is fundamentally restructuring their development pipeline to deliver playable content faster, even if it means breaking some narrative eggs along the way. The thing nobody talks about is that Nyx One is actually a testing ground for Genesis, CIG's new planet tech system, and they needed an Earth-like environment to properly stress test their new biome generation tools. But the data mining reveals something more significant. They're not just testing tech, they're testing entire gameplay loops. You've got 6-phase dynamic events that mirror the complexity of Jumptown, but with faction warfare elements. Phase 1, defeat attacking fighters. Phase 2, assault stations. Phase 3, intercept bombers. Phase 4, destroy power cores. Phase 5, save pilots. Phase 6 has bonus objectives and multiple success/failure states depending on whether Captain Martel survives the encounter. This isn't concept art anymore. This is implemented gameplay with full voice acting. You can't test realistic grass physics, weather systems, and atmospheric effects on a barren rock, but you also can't test complex faction warfare scenarios without actual locations and characters that players care about. The community keeps saying just use a different planet, but they're missing the point. Nyx is coming in 2025, possibly within the next few months based on the evidence. Terra, the system that actually needs this lush planet tech, is still years away. CIG needed a delivery vehicle for Genesis now, not in 2027 or beyond. So they made a choice. Break some lore to deliver cutting-edge technology that will benefit every future system. But there's a twist nobody saw coming. The jump point from Pyro to Nyx is positioned so far from Pyro's star that most ships won't have the fuel capacity to make the journey. You're looking at a system that's technically accessible but practically requires either a capital ship, a starfarer for refueling, or very careful fuel management. This isn't an accident. It's a gameplay gate that ensures only prepared players make the journey to Nyx. You know what's funny? Every time CIG drops a major lore change like this, half the community acts shocked, like they've never seen a retcon before. Meanwhile, the other half is already planning their base locations on Paradise Planet. If you're the type who likes staying ahead of these developments instead of being surprised by them, you might want to hit that subscribe button. Because honestly, the data mining community finds this stuff months before it hits the official channels, and you deserve to know what's coming before everyone else starts arguing about it on Reddit. Now, if you're a lore purist, you're probably feeling pretty frustrated right now. You get it. You've invested years in understanding this universe's history, and suddenly the rules change overnight. The forums are full of players asking the same question. Why would the People's Alliance live on Levski when there's a paradise planet right there? But then you have to ask yourself, would you rather have beautiful, functional planets with active mission content, or lore consistency with empty systems? Because the data mining suggests you're going to be making that choice very soon. The voice lines are recorded, the missions are scripted, and the jump points are mapped. The real question is, are you ready for what Nyx actually represents? The lore problem is actually solvable, and CIG has done this before, but the data mining reveals they're taking a completely different approach this time. Remember Delamar? That asteroid used to be in the Stanton system as a temporary placeholder. Then they moved it to Nyx where it belonged. The same thing could happen with this planet. They could use Nyx 1 as a Genesis testbed now, then swap it out for Terra Prime when that system launches, giving Nyx back its proper barren wasteland. But the mission files suggest something more permanent. You've got Levski getting major updates, new docking ports, exterior freight elevators, expanded hangar facilities. These aren't temporary implementations. They're building Levski to handle significantly more player traffic. The zero-gravity environment is getting specialized freight services that don't exist anywhere else in the game. You've probably been looking at the new Nyx 1 footage thinking about this, and honestly, what they've created looks exactly like what Terra should be. Terra is supposed to be humanity's second Earth, the crown jewel of human terraforming. If you took the Nyx 1 assets and dropped them into the Terra system, you'd have the perfect foundation for humanity's most important colony world. But the data mining gets more interesting when you look at the Pyro to Nyx jump point positioning. CIG wants Nyx to feel isolated and difficult to reach. You're not just quantum jumping from Stanton to a new tourist destination. You're making a pilgrimage to the frontier, and that journey needs to feel dangerous and significant. The real genius move would be treating this as a bait and switch. Let players fall in love with this beautiful world, then yank it away and put it where it belongs, in Terra. Give Nyx back its identity as a frontier system where survival is hard and resources are scarce. That would actually strengthen both systems' identities. Plus, it would create genuine emotional investment. You'd actually miss the planet when it's gone, which is exactly the kind of attachment CIG wants players to feel toward locations in their universe. The mission structure supports this theory. You're not just visiting Nyx, you're participating in its story. The People's Alliance isn't just background lore, they're actively fighting Vondual raiders and Shatterblade pirates for control of the system. Your actions in these 6-phase missions will determine whether Nyx becomes a safe haven or falls to criminal elements. You'll never forget your first trip to Levski back in the day. You'd been playing for months in the polished corporate environments of Stanton, and then you quantum jumped to this ruin, this beautiful broken place where every surface told a story of failure and abandonment. The lighting was dim, the corridors were cramped, and everything felt like it might fall apart at any moment. That's what made it special, though. Levski felt earned. It felt like a place where people went when they had nowhere else to go. Walking through those corridors, you understood why the People's Alliance existed, because sometimes the only way to be free is to make your home in the places nobody else wants. Now you're looking at footage of pristine meadows and crystal clear lakes, and you're thinking, why would anyone choose Levski over that? The environmental storytelling just doesn't work anymore. But then you hear Captain Martel's voice in the data mined files. Never gets easier losing a volunteer under your command, but we can carry on what Gabe believed in, making Nyx a safer place for everyone. Suddenly it clicks. This isn't about choosing between a paradise and an asteroid. This is about fighting for that paradise. The People's Alliance isn't hiding in Levski because they have to. They're staging operations from Levski because it's the perfect base for guerrilla warfare against the Vanduul and criminal organizations trying to claim Nyx 1 for themselves. This change actually reveals CIG's biggest challenge with the reduced system count, but the data mining shows they've found a clever solution. They originally planned 100 star systems at launch. Now we're getting 5. That means every single planet needs to pull double duty. It needs to serve both gameplay and narrative functions. You can't have truly desolate systems anymore because players need content. Pyro was supposed to be mostly empty space with one major station, but now it's got multiple settlements and points of interest. Same thing is happening to Nyx, but the mission files reveal something different. CIG isn't just changing the planets. They're changing how systems evolve over time. The 6-phase dynamic events aren't one-time missions. They're ongoing conflicts that will reshape Nyx based on player actions. Win enough missions for the People's Alliance, and Nyx becomes safer for civilian traffic. Fail, and the Vandal establish permanent footholds in the system. The original vision of a dead system doesn't work when you only have 5 systems total, but a contested system where the outcome depends on player actions? That's compelling gameplay that serves the narrative you need to understand. Embrace the change, but demand better lore integration. CIG needs to hire more narrative designers who can work alongside the environment teams. Every major planetary change should come with a lore update that explains the transformation. The good news? They're actually doing this with the Genesis Corporation lore updates in the current 4.3.2 news feeds. Maybe Nyx 1 was recently terraformed by an experimental process, and the data mined voice lines suggest exactly this. Maybe it's unstable and will revert to its barren state depending on player actions. Give us a story that makes the change feel intentional, not accidental. The community has legitimate concerns about this pattern. When you change fundamental aspects of established locations without narrative justification, you're essentially telling longtime backers that their investment in the lore doesn't matter. But the mission structure suggests CIG is learning from this criticism. You're not just visiting a changed Nyx. You're participating in the events that are changing it. The most telling detail from the data mining? The Vandal aren't just random raiders. They're specifically targeting Nyx because of its strategic position bordering Vandal space. The beautiful planet isn't a plot hole, it's a prize worth fighting for. And the People's Alliance isn't hiding in an asteroid because they're cowards. They're using it as a fortress to protect something valuable. The Reddit thread that sparked this discussion has over 1,300 upvotes and hundreds of comments, and the community is genuinely split. You've got the gameplay over lore crowd saying this looks amazing and who cares about old concept art. Then you've got the lore enthusiasts saying this breaks the fundamental identity of the Nyx system. Both sides are right, honestly. The planet looks incredible, and Genesis tech is going to revolutionize how Star Citizen builds worlds. But the lore inconsistency is jarring, especially for longtime backers who've been invested in this universe's story for over a decade. It's like watching your favorite book get adapted into a movie. Sometimes changes are necessary, but that doesn't make them less painful. The most telling comment came from someone who said, "Why would the UEE ignore a system with an Earth-like planet?" That's the question CIG needs to answer. But the data mining actually provides that answer. The UEE isn't ignoring Nyx. Intersect Defense Solutions, a UEE-affiliated security contractor, is actively working with the People's Alliance to secure the system. The most upvoted suggestions in that Reddit thread weren't just criticism, they were creative solutions for how to make this work within the existing lore framework. And based on the mission structure in the files, CIG might actually be implementing some of these ideas. So what should you do with this information? First, adjust your expectations for future systems. CIG is clearly prioritizing gameplay content over lore consistency, so expect more changes like this. But more importantly, prepare for Nyx to arrive much sooner than you think. If you're planning your in-game activities around Nyx, prepare for a system that's much more hospitable than originally planned, but also much more dangerous. This is going to be a base-building paradise, but it's also going to be a war zone. The new Genesis tech means resource distribution, weather patterns, and terrain generation will be far more sophisticated than anything we've seen in the current 4.3.2 build. Start thinking about fuel management for that Pyro to Nyx jump. The distance is significant enough that you'll need either a long-range ship, a support vessel, or very careful planning. This isn't going to be as simple as quantum jumping from Stanton to Pyro. Consider your faction alignments. The People's Alliance, Intersect Defense Solutions, Vandal Raiders, and Shatterblade Pirates are all going to be active in Nyx. Your reputation with these factions will determine what missions you can access and how safe you'll be in different parts of the system. And if you're holding out hope for truly alien, inhospitable worlds, you might need to wait for systems beyond the initial 5. But Nyx 2, that smog planet with thick clouds of acid and carbon dioxide, that's still going to be the hostile environment you're looking for. The current development philosophy seems to favor accessibility over environmental challenge, but they're balancing it with faction-based danger instead of environmental hazards. Most importantly, provide constructive feedback. CIG listens to the community, but they respond better to solutions than complaints. The discussion in the comments is always where the real insights happen, and honestly, some of you have better solutions than the developers themselves. Let's talk about what the data mining actually reveals about Nyx's implementation timeline. You've got complete voice acting for Captain Anis Martel of the People's Alliance security vessel Tranquility. These aren't placeholder recordings, they're fully produced audio with emotional depth and character development. The mission structure is sophisticated. 6 phases with branching success/failure states, bonus objectives, and consequences that carry forward between phases. This isn't something you throw together for a distant release. This is content that's been in development for months and is approaching completion. The location files are even more telling. Levski Cafe Musician suggests social spaces with entertainment. Borho Station implies multiple stations or districts within Levski. Delamar Recite could be anything from a memorial service to a political rally. These are specific named locations with associated gameplay mechanics. The jump point data is particularly revealing. Pyro to Nyx exists in the files with specific coordinates and properties. Jump points can be made invisible on the star map, but the underlying data structure is already there. This suggests the technical implementation is complete, and they're just waiting for the right moment to activate it. The faction integration is the most complex part. You've got 4 active factions with competing objectives, voice acting for multiple characters, and mission chains that affect system-wide reputation. This isn't a simple addition, this is a complete ecosystem of gameplay that's been carefully balanced and tested. The Vanduul presence is particularly significant. These aren't just random encounters, they're specifically targeting Nyx because of its strategic position. The voice lines mention Vanduul really got it out for these Shatterblade, suggesting complex interfaction relationships that go beyond simple good guys versus bad guys. The technical requirements are also revealing. The exterior freight elevators mentioned in the voice lines are already implemented in the current PTU build. The zero-gravity mechanics for Levski are functional. The docking port systems are working. All the underlying technology needed for Nyx is already in the game. When you actually look at the Nyx system layout, the lore changes start to make more sense. Nyx is a small system with 3 planets and no moons. The star is an F-type dwarf, white and relatively cool. The jump point from Pyro places you close to the star, unlike the distant positioning on the Pyro side. Nyx 1, despite the lore changes, is still described as a coreless world that has been mined clean. The beautiful biomes could be recent terraforming or natural recovery after centuries of abandonment. The planet's position in the habitable zone makes this plausible. Nyx 2 remains true to its original concept, a smog planet with high-pressure atmosphere and thick clouds of acid and carbon dioxide. This is your hostile environment for players who want environmental challenges. The greenish coloration suggests unique atmospheric chemistry that could provide fascinating exploration opportunities. Delamar sits in the Glacium asteroid belt between Nyx 2 and the outer system. This positioning makes it a perfect staging ground for operations throughout the system. You can reach Nyx 1 for surface operations, Nyx 2 for hostile environment missions, and the outer asteroid fields for mining and salvage. The asteroid belts are described as dense with billions of rocks floating around. This isn't just scenery, this is gameplay space for mining, salvage, and combat operations. The Glacium belt contains the mining facilities that originally attracted corporate interest to the system. The proximity to Vanduul space explains the ongoing conflict. Nyx isn't just a frontier system, it's a border system with strategic importance. The beautiful planet isn't a lore inconsistency, it's a strategic asset that multiple factions want to control. The bottom line is this: Star Citizen is evolving, and sometimes that evolution means breaking a few eggs to make the omelet. Genesis Tech is going to make every future planet better, even if the first implementation comes at the cost of some lore consistency. But the data mining suggests this isn't just a tech demo. It's a fully realized system that's coming much sooner than anyone expected. What's your take on the Nyx 1 changes? Are you team gorgeous planets over lore or team consistency matters? More importantly, are you ready for the fuel management challenges of reaching Nyx? Drop a comment and let me know how you think CIG should handle these kinds of changes going forward. The discussion in the comments is always where the real insights happen, and honestly, some of you have better solutions than the developers themselves. Thanks for sticking with me through this deep dive into one of Star Citizen's most controversial recent changes. The reality is that CIG is building this universe while we're playing in it, and that means we're all witnesses to the creative process, messiness and all. But what the data mining tells us is clear. Nyx isn't just a concept anymore. It's an active development priority with completed voice acting, implemented missions, and functional gameplay systems. Whether it arrives with the next major patch or later in 2026, the evidence suggests it's much closer than most people realize. In Star Citizen, the only constant is change. The question is whether we're changing for the better. And based on what Genesis Tech promises for the future of planetary exploration, this might be one of those cases where breaking the rules today creates better experiences tomorrow. The beautiful planet might break the lore, but it's going to give us gameplay experiences we've never had before.